The distress signal. Captain Zircon of the Galactic Rescue Corps had seen many emergencies in his 20-year career. Ship malfunctions, medical crises, pirates, asteroid collisions. He thought he had witnessed every type of disaster space could offer. But the signal that appeared on his console at 0400 station time was something entirely new. "Captain," his communications officer called out, her voice tight with concern. "We're receiving a distress beacon from Sector 47. It's a human cargo vessel." Zircon felt his scales ripple with unease. Sector 47 was nicknamed the Graveyard, a region of space filled with radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, and debris from 1,000 ancient battles. No sane captain entered that sector without military escort and heavy shielding. The fact that a cargo vessel was there at all suggested either desperation or stupidity. "What's their status?" he asked, moving to the communication station. "Life support failing. Hull breaches in multiple sections. Radiation exposure critical. They've been adrift for 6 days." She paused, reading the data stream. "Captain, their crew complement is 4 humans. All still alive." "Impossible," Zircon's medical officer said from across the bridge. 6 days in those conditions? With multiple hull breaches? They should be dead 3 times over. But the biosigns were clear. 4 human heartbeats, elevated but steady. 4 sets of lungs still breathing. 4 impossibly stubborn life forms refusing to accept what should have been certain death. "Set course for their coordinates," Zircon ordered. "Maximum speed. And get me everything we know about human survival capabilities." The discovery. What the database told them about humans was concerning. The species was classified as high-risk rescue subjects due to their unpredictable responses to crisis situations. They had a documented tendency to ignore safety protocols, attempt repairs that endangered themselves further, and refuse to abandon positions even when evacuation was the logical choice. The file also noted, somewhat ominously, humans have survived conditions that killed more resilient species. Approach human rescues with expectation of unexpected outcomes. As their ship approached the damaged cargo vessel, Zircon understood why humans had earned their reputation. The cargo ship looked like it had been chewed up and spit out by something with very large teeth. The hull was torn open in at least 7 places. Entire sections were simply gone. Radiation readings were off the charts. "Captain, how are they still alive?" his pilot whispered, staring at the wreckage. "That," Zircon said slowly, "is exactly what I intend to find out." They established contact. The voice that answered was female, hoarse but surprisingly cheerful. "Oh, thank God. We were starting to think nobody got our signal. I'm Captain Elena Rodriguez of the cargo hauler Persistent Dream. We're in a bit of a situation here." "A bit of a situation?" Zircon's translator struggled with the human phrase. "Captain Rodriguez, your ship is destroyed. Your radiation exposure should be lethal. How are you still functional?" "Well, we got creative. Hang on, I'm putting you on speaker so the crew can hear." There were sounds of movement, then 3 more voices joined the conversation. "This is Chen, engineering. We've been rotating who goes into the most radiation-heavy sections. Keeps the exposure somewhat manageable for each person. Jackson here, medical officer. I've been rationing our radiation meds and using the cargo, we were hauling medical supplies, lucky break, to supplement our treatment. And I'm Torres, pilot. Been keeping us positioned so the intact sections of the hull block most of the solar radiation. It's like a really complicated game of hide and seek with deadly space weather." Zircon exchanged glances with his crew. They were describing survival tactics that shouldn't work. Rotating radiation exposure didn't make it safe, it just meant everyone was dying slowly instead of quickly. Rationing medication didn't change the fact that they should have run out days ago. And no amount of clever positioning could protect a ship that was more hull than hull. "We're coming to extract you," Zircon said. "Prepare for docking. Our medical team will treat your radiation exposure immediately." "About that," Rodriguez said, We can't all leave yet. Someone needs to stay with the cargo. The cargo? Zircon's scales went flat against his body, a sign of extreme confusion. Captain Rodriguez, you're dying. The cargo is irrelevant. Negative. We're hauling medical supplies to a colony that's dealing with a plague outbreak. If we abandon this cargo, 3,000 people die. We need to rig a tow. Your ship is falling apart. It cannot be towed safely. Then we'll make it safe. Chen, what do you need? The engineer's voice came back, calm and methodical. If your ship has industrial welding equipment and reinforced cables, I can stabilize the cargo section enough for a short-range tow. Give me 6 hours. You want to conduct exterior repairs, Zircon said slowly, in a radiation field that's already poisoning you, on a ship that could break apart at any moment, to save cargo? Yeah, that about sums it up, Rodriguez agreed. Is that a problem? The impossible repair. Zircon wanted to refuse. Every regulation, every safety protocol, every ounce of common sense screamed that this was insane. You didn't send rescue personnel into radiation zones. You didn't attempt repairs on vessels beyond saving. You extracted survivors and let the wreckage drift. But something in the human captain's voice stopped him. Not stubbornness, not bravado. Simple determination. These humans had survived 6 days of hell because they refused to give up. And now they were asking for help to finish what they started. We'll assist, Zircon heard himself say. But my medical officer monitors your vital signs constantly. If anyone's exposure reaches critical levels, we extract immediately. Understood? Understood. And Captain? Thank you. What followed was 6 hours of the most stressful rescue operation Zircon had ever conducted. His crew watched in fascination and horror as the humans worked. Chen moved through the damaged sections with practiced efficiency, welding support beams and patching holes with whatever materials were available. She worked in 30-minute shifts, retreating to the less contaminated areas when her radiation badge changed color, then returning when it was safe. Sort of safe. Relatively safe by human standards, anyway. Jackson coordinated medical treatment, injecting radiation blockers and monitoring everyone's exposure levels with obsessive precision. She had turned the cargo bay into a makeshift medical station, using supplies they were supposed to deliver to treat themselves instead. Torres kept the ship stable, making constant micro-adjustments to their position, compensating for drift and gravitational pull with skill that impressed even Zircon's experienced pilot. And Rodriguez coordinated everything, her voice steady and calm even as her own radiation readings climbed into ranges that should have left her unconscious. Zircon sent 2 of his own engineers to assist. They were suited in full radiation gear, protected by the best shielding technology could provide. They still needed frequent breaks. The humans wore basic EVA suits with minimal protection and just kept working. How? His chief engineer asked after his second retreat to safety. How are they doing this? The radiation should be overwhelming their nervous systems. They should be vomiting, disoriented, barely conscious. They are vomiting, Zircon observed, watching his monitors. Rodriguez has done so 3 times. Chen twice. They just clean up and continue working. That's not physically possible. And yet. 5 hours in, disaster struck. A weakened support beam gave way, sending a cascade of debris into the section where Chen was working. The human engineer disappeared under a pile of twisted metal. Chen's down. Torres shouted. I'm going in. Negative, Jackson's voice cut across the comm. Your exposure is too high already. I'll go. You're the only medic. If you get hurt, we're all screwed. Then I won't get hurt. Rodriguez, keep that structural integrity stable. If anything else collapses, we lose her. Zircon watched helplessly as Jackson navigated through the dangerous wreckage. His medical officer provided guidance, but it was Jackson's steady hands and stubborn determination that cleared the debris and pulled Chen free. The engineer's suit was torn. Radiation was pouring in. She was bleeding from a gash on her head. And she was laughing. That was exciting, Chen said, her words slightly slurred. Did we lose much time? Chen, you need immediate medical attention, Zircon commanded. After we finish. We're almost done. Just need to secure the final support struts. You're injured and critically exposed. Yeah, but if I stop now, all this was for nothing. Torres, can you grab those struts from storage bay 3? I'd do it myself, but I'm seeing double and that seems suboptimal for precision work. Torres retrieved the struts. Rodriguez adjusted the ship's position to make the final repairs easier. Jackson treated Chen's wound while the engineer gave instructions for the last welds. And somehow, impossibly, they finished. Cargo section secure, Chen announced. She'll hold for a short-range tow. Probably. Like 70% sure. Maybe 60. Good enough, Rodriguez declared. Captain Zircon, we're ready for extraction. The truth. They brought the humans aboard, rushed them to medical, and began aggressive radiation treatment. Zircon stood in the medical bay, watching his doctors work on 4 patients who should already be corpses. Their cellular damage is extensive, his medical officer reported. But it's like their bodies are actively fighting the radiation damage. Repairing faster than they should. I've never seen anything like it. Will they survive? Honestly? I don't know. By all rights, they should be dead. But they're humans. So probably yes? They seem to survive things specifically to spite reasonable expectations of mortality. Rodriguez opened her eyes, focusing on Zircon with effort. The cargo? Being towed to the colony. It will arrive in time. Good. She smiled weakly. Worth it then. You nearly died. All of you nearly died. For medical supplies you were hired to deliver. People were depending on us. We don't quit just because things get hard. Zircon's scales rippled. Is this normal for humans? Refusing to accept defeat even when defeat is logical? Pretty much, yeah. We're stubborn that way. It's kind of our thing. Over the next 3 days, Zircon watched as the humans recovered. Not slowly and carefully as they should have, but with determined speed that frustrated his medical team. They exercised when they should have been resting. They asked about returning to duty when they should have been unconscious. They treated their near-death experience as an inconvenience rather than a trauma. On the 4th day, Chen was back in engineering, helping repair systems she had no business touching in her condition. Jackson was reviewing medical protocols, trying to improve their emergency response procedures. Torres was in the simulator, practicing maneuvers. And Rodriguez was on the bridge, drinking something she called coffee and looking entirely too healthy for someone who'd been dying recently. Captain Rodriguez, Zircon said. I need to understand. How did you survive? She considered the question, sipping her coffee. Honestly? We just decided not to die. We had a job to finish. People were counting on us. So we did what needed to be done and worried about surviving later. You decided not to die. Basically, yeah. I know that sounds weird. No, Zircon interrupted. Actually, that explains everything about your species. Rodriguez grinned. We're pretty good at the not dying thing. Lots of practice over the millennia. As the Persistent Dream's crew prepared to transfer to a new ship to continue their route, Zircon updated his report. In the section marked Human Survival Capabilities, he wrote, previous assessments underestimated human resilience by at least 300%. Recommend reclassifying humans as extremely high survival probability for rescue operations. Note, humans do not accept death as inevitable. Approach all human rescue scenarios with expectation that subjects will still be alive and active despite all evidence suggesting otherwise. He paused, then added one final note, humans are terrifying. But I'm very glad they're on our side. The reputation. The meeting. 3 months after the rescue, Captain Zircon found himself summoned to Galactic Rescue Corps headquarters for what his commanding officer called a strategic planning session. What he found was an emergency meeting attended by representatives from 12 different rescue organizations across 6 sectors. The conference room was packed. Zircon recognized faces from every major rescue service in the galaxy. All of them looked tired, confused, and slightly shell-shocked. "Thank you all for coming," Fleet Commander Veltorin began, her voice resonating through the chamber. "We're here to discuss a developing situation regarding human rescue operations." A murmur ran through the crowd. Zircon felt his scales tighten. Apparently, his experience hadn't been unique. "Over the past 6 months, Veltorin continued, we've received 43 reports of human rescue operations that defied conventional expectations. Captain Zircon, would you share your recent experience?" Zircon stood, recounting the cargo ship rescue. The room grew quieter as he spoke, heads nodding in recognition. When he finished, other captains began sharing their stories. "Captain Morlev from Sector 12, we responded to a distress call from a human science vessel caught in a gas giant's gravity well. They'd been there for 9 days. We expected to recover bodies. Instead, we found the crew had built a makeshift gravitational slingshot using their escape pods and were trying to launch themselves to safety. It shouldn't have worked. It did." Commander Thex from the Medical Transport Division, human mining colony lost all power during a winter storm. Temperatures dropped to -70 degrees. We arrived after 5 weeks. Every other species would have frozen in days. The humans had survived by creating a communal shelter, sharing body heat, and rationing supplies with mathematical precision. They'd lost weight, but not a single casualty. Lieutenant Kespar from Deep Space Rescue found a human exploration team stranded on a moon with toxic atmosphere. Their habitat was compromised. They survived by taking turns in the only remaining airtight suit, breathing in shifts for 6 weeks until we arrived. They calculated the exact oxygen requirements and timing. They shouldn't have been conscious, let alone alive. Story after story. Humans surviving engine failures by repairing critical systems while being pulled toward a black hole. Humans enduring food shortages that should have killed them through careful rationing and sheer willpower. Humans protecting each other in impossible situations by sharing resources and rotating who faced the most danger. "This is what we're dealing with," Veltorin said once the stories concluded. "Humans are forcing us to rewrite our entire understanding of survival physiology." "It's not just physiology," Captain Zircon said. "It's psychology. They simply refuse to accept that situations are hopeless. Where we see certain death, they see a problem that requires creative solutions." "Exactly," Veltorin agreed. "Which brings us to today's purpose. We need to develop new protocols specifically for human rescue operations. Because clearly, our standard procedures are inadequate." The problem. Dr. Hal Quinn, the Corps' chief medical officer, stood to present his findings. The holographic display behind him showed detailed anatomical scans and physiological data. "I've studied over 200 human rescue survivors," he began. "The data is fascinating and deeply concerning. Humans possess several biological advantages we underestimated." The display shifted to show human cellular structures. First, their healing capacity. Human cells repair damage at rates significantly higher than galactic averages. They have multiple redundant systems for managing everything from oxygen transport to waste removal. Their bodies are built for redundancy. Second, pain tolerance. Humans experience pain, their nervous systems function normally. But they possess an unusual ability to compartmentalize pain, to acknowledge it exists while still functioning. Other species are overwhelmed by pain. Humans get angry at it. That sparked recognition around the room. Zircon remembered Rodriguez working through radiation exposure, Chin welding supports while injured, Jackson treating wounds while dangerously contaminated. Third, stress response. Most species have a binary stress reaction, fight or flight. Humans have a third option, problem solve. When faced with lethal danger, their brains don't shut down. They accelerate. They think faster, notice details more clearly, and make complex decisions under pressure that would incapacitate most species. But here's what truly separates humans, Dr. Halquin continued, his expression serious. They have something we can't quantify medically. Humans call it stubborn or determined or refusing to quit. When they decide they're not dying today, they somehow make that reality. We don't understand the mechanism. But the evidence is overwhelming. Captain Morleth raised a hand. Doctor, you're describing humans as nearly unkillable. Surely there are limits? Oh, they absolutely can die. And tragically, some do. But their survival threshold is so far beyond what we'd consider possible that our rescue protocols are fundamentally inadequate. We arrive expecting to recover bodies and find living, active humans who've been improvising solutions to impossible problems. The display changed again, showing survival statistics. The numbers were shocking. In comparable crisis situations, human survival rates were 3 to 4 times higher than any other species. In extended survival scenarios, weeks without food, days without water, hours in vacuum, humans consistently outlasted projections by enormous margins. So what do we do? Commander Veltorin asked. How do we adapt our protocols? The solution. The discussion that followed was intense. Rescue captains from different sectors shared insights, compared notes, and gradually built a picture of what human rescue operations required. We need to expect them to be alive, Captain Zircon said. No matter how long they've been stranded, no matter how damaged their situation looks, we approach every human rescue assuming active survivors who are probably trying to fix things themselves. Agreed, Captain Morleth added. And we need to be ready for unconventional solutions. Humans improvise constantly. They combine technologies in ways that violate standard protocols but somehow work. We need engineers who can think like humans, creatively and dangerously. Medical response is crucial, Dr. Halquin interjected. Human injuries that look catastrophic might be manageable. But we can't assume. We need specialists trained in human physiology who understand their enhanced healing but also their unique vulnerabilities. The group worked for hours, drafting new protocols. By the end, they'd created a comprehensive framework specifically for human rescue operations. Protocol 1. Always assume human survivors are alive and active regardless of conditions. Protocol 2. Expect improvised repairs and unconventional solutions. Don't dismiss human plans as impossible, verify first. Protocol 3. Humans will resist evacuation if they believe they can save their mission. Negotiate, don't command. Protocol 4. Human pain tolerance is extreme but not infinite. Monitor carefully for signs of critical injury they're ignoring. Protocol 5. Humans protect each other instinctively. Group rescues require understanding pack dynamics. Protocol 6. Never underestimate human determination. If they say they can hold out longer, believe them. The test. 2 weeks after the conference, the new protocols faced their first real test. A distress signal came from the edge of explored space, a human colony ship experiencing critical system failures. Life support was failing. Power was dying. Radiation was increasing. The colony ship carried 3,000 humans. Captain Zircon's rescue fleet arrived expecting organized chaos, desperate survival measures, and impossible human stubbornness multiplied by 3,000. What they found was organized efficiency. The humans had divided into functional groups. Engineers worked on power systems. Medical teams established triage centers. Parents organized children into protected zones. The elderly helped with resource distribution. Everyone had a role. Everyone was working together with practiced precision. Captain Zircon, the colony ship's captain, a woman named Zhang, greeted him calmly. Thank you for responding so quickly. We have the situation mostly under control, but we need assistance with 3 critical repairs and evacuation support for our most vulnerable. Mostly under control? Zircon's scales rippled. Your power is at 8%. Life support is failing sector by sector. Yes, but we've consolidated everyone into sustainable zones. We're rationing oxygen and rotating people through the safest areas. The engineers think they can restore partial power if you can supply certain components. And we've been running drills for emergency scenarios, so everyone knows their roles. She said it so matter-of-factly. As if 3,000 people maintaining order and hope while their ship died around them was perfectly normal. Of course you've been running drills, Zircon said weakly. How long can you hold out? With your supplies? Another 6 days easily. Maybe 8 if we're careful. We'd prefer to save the ship if possible. Starting over on a new colony is expensive and time-consuming. Over the next 3 days, Zircon watched 3,000 humans prove everything the rescue conference had concluded. They worked together with remarkable efficiency. They solved problems creatively. They protected their vulnerable while maintaining morale. They refused to panic despite every reason to panic. His rescue fleet provided components. Human engineers installed them, making modifications on the fly that improved efficiency beyond original specifications. His medical teams treated injuries. Human doctors worked alongside them, sharing techniques and learning new ones. Your species is remarkable, Zircon told Captain Zhang as the colony ship system stabilized. We're just doing what needs doing, she replied with a shrug. Humans are pretty good at surviving. We've had a lot of practice over the millennia. That phrase keeps coming up. A lot of practice. Zhang smiled. We come from a planet that tried really hard to kill us for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, droughts, floods, Earth threw everything at us. We survived by being stubborn, adaptable, and refusing to quit. It's basically our species' defining trait. Most species evolved on worlds that challenged them. Why are humans different? Honestly? I think we're not that different. We just never learned when to give up. Every time something terrible happened, we survived it. And surviving it made us better at surviving the next terrible thing. It's a feedback loop of stubbornness. Zircon considered this. You're aware that other species find this terrifying? We've noticed, yeah. But here's the thing, we're not trying to be scary. We're just trying not to die. If that accidentally intimidates people, well. She grinned. That's a side benefit. The legacy. 6 months after the colony ship rescue, Captain Zircon found himself training new rescue personnel using the updated human protocols. His class was packed, everyone wanted to learn how to work with humans effectively. The key to understanding humans, he told his students, is recognizing that they don't see survival the way we do. We view survival as avoiding death. Humans view survival as winning against death. It's a subtle but critical difference. He pulled up footage from the Persistent Dream rescue. Watch Captain Rodriguez here. She's been exposed to lethal radiation for days. She's injured. She's exhausted. By all reasonable standards, she should surrender. Instead, she completes her mission. The footage shifted to the colony ship. 3,000 humans facing ship-wide failure. They don't panic. They organize. They problem-solve. They maintain hope against all logic. So humans are invincible? A student asked. No. Humans die. But they die fighting, creating, problem-solving. They die trying one more solution. Making one more attempt. Protecting one more person. And because they refuse to accept defeat until the absolute last moment, they survive situations that kill other species much earlier. Another student raised a hand. How do we work effectively with beings like that? 3 rules, Zircon said. First, believe them when they say they can hold out longer. They're usually right. Second, don't try to stop them from attempting repairs or rescue operations, work with them instead. Third, remember that humans are cooperative. They respond to partnership better than commands. He paused, remembering Rodriguez's laugh, Chen's determination, Jackson's calm, Torres's skill. Most importantly, understand that when you rescue a human, you're not just saving a life. You're partnering with someone who's already been saving themselves. Respect that. The future. The updated protocol spread throughout the Galactic Rescue Corps and beyond. Human rescue operations became specialized assignments, handled by teams trained in human psychology and physiology. Survival rates improved across all species as rescue teams adopted human-inspired techniques. Creative problem-solving became standard training. Refusing to accept defeat until absolutely necessary became a core principle. Humans themselves remained largely unaware of their reputation. They continued taking dangerous jobs, exploring hazardous regions, and surviving impossible situations with their characteristic determination and optimism. When other species asked how they did it, humans typically responded with variations of "we just didn't want to die, so we didn't." Captain Zircon eventually retired after 30 years of service. His farewell speech at the retirement ceremony included a story about 4 stubborn humans who refused to abandon their cargo despite dying from radiation exposure. "That rescue taught me something crucial," he told the assembled crowd. "I learned that humans don't survive because they're physically superior. They survive because they refuse to accept that some situations are hopeless. They look at certain death and say, 'But what if we try anyway?' Other species call humans crazy, reckless, stubborn. They're right. But those qualities, combined with human creativity and cooperation, make them the most reliable survivors in known space. I'm honored to have worked alongside humans. And I'm very, very glad they're our allies." Years later, a young rescue captain found herself facing an impossible situation, a mining crew trapped in a collapsing asteroid field with no apparent escape. The crew was mixed species, 2 Valaxians, 3 Corinthians, and 1 human. She followed protocol, arriving expecting organized chaos. What she found was a human named Martinez coordinating the entire rescue from inside the asteroid, directing his crewmates with calm precision while simultaneously jury-rigging an escape route that violated 6 different safety regulations. "Captain," Martinez greeted her cheerfully. "Thanks for the assist. We've almost got this figured out. Can you position your ship at coordinates I'm sending? We're going to blow this rock apart and ride the debris field to safety." "That's impossible and incredibly dangerous." "Yeah, probably. But it's also our best shot. You coming or not?" The captain thought about everything she'd learned in training about working with humans. About their refusal to quit. About their creative problem-solving. About trusting them when they said they had a plan. "Send the coordinates," she said. "Let's blow up an asteroid." As she positioned her ship, following instructions from a human who was somehow still alive and actively creating solutions while trapped in a dying rock, she understood what Captain Zircon had meant. Humans weren't scary because they couldn't die. They were scary because they refused to die. And in a dangerous galaxy full of lethal threats, that refusal, that stubborn, determined, impossible refusal to quit, made them the best partners anyone could ask for. The asteroid exploded. The debris field scattered. And somehow, impossibly, Martinez and his crew rode it to safety, laughing the entire way. Just another day working with humans.